Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here to our group in person and our Zoom folks. I am going to record this meeting, so everyone remember that we are recording. And that reminder was mostly for me. But thank you for being here. We are here for joint salary on February the 22nd. We have both our instructional, the 23rd, right? One big day, sorry. February 23rd of 2022 for joint salary. Thank you for being here. And without further ado, we will get going.
All right, evening everyone. Appreciate you guys getting together. I guess I need to get a little used to this presenting to people's backs, but bear with me. So obviously at this point, we're facing unprecedented times in terms of what we're facing financially, employee morale, just dealing with the pandemic. We've got record inflation. Just the general sense from the county, city, the U.S. is things are hard. And I think, when we talk about the pandemic, everyone's experience has been different, but the one commonality is everyone's experience has been incredibly challenging. And, the board, as we discussed the counter proposal with them, that's something they certainly recognized is how difficult from every level of the school board in a service industry like we are, just how challenging it's been with staffing shortages and all the issues. And while the board can't necessarily cure COVID, they can't fix a lot of the issues with inflation and other things, they can pay employees. So when we met with them, that was the charge, was to come up with an extremely competitive and impressive salary package and get it closed tonight. So we'll go ahead and I guess start passing out the packets. I forgot that part. Thank you guys. So as I mentioned, the charge from the board is to get it done tonight. They want to get money in our employees' pockets, in their bank accounts. The offer we're making tonight is the largest ever passed across the table. So I just wanted to mention that, and we'll touch on some of those metrics as we move along. And I did include the board's legislative program. Of course, as everyone knows, we're in legislative session right now. And, we obviously don't control our funding. This board, more so probably than anyone that I've worked with, has prioritized employee, teachers, custodians' salaries, everyone's salaries as the paramount duty of the board. And included in their legislative program, in fact, bullet number 1 was a request from our local delegation to hold the required local effort constant and use those funds to increase the base student allocation so we can pay our employees. So I just wanted to point that out. This board has done incredible things. There have been a lot of limitations that we have discussed. When you look at the Florida retirement system, of which all of our employees are participants, of course that's an incredible benefit and one of the really attractive parts of having a school board job. It's also incredibly expensive, and the costs are completely out of our control. If you look from 2013, the board contribution was a little over 5%, and it's more than doubled, and that represents over a $10.4 million increase in our costs to employ our employees. Similarly, the health insurance is another area which we have very little control over the costs. Our board provides no-cost insurance for any employee that works more than 20 hours a week. We've discussed very few school boards do that. It's been a priority It's in the strategic plan. It's something the board feels is very important. And, again, when you look back 10 years, a little over $5,100, but that has increased to $7,300 per employee, which is $2,200 an employee with a cost of $8.6 million. I did include, for those of us that are not on the insurance committee, something we've been keeping a very close eye on is the cost of COVID. And I'm not talking classroom instruction, we're talking our insurance claims. And it's kind of small, and I apologize for that, but our COVID claims since March of 2020 total over $7.5 million. And that's had an incredible impact on our fund balance and our insurance fund, and just represents a significant cost the board is bearing. This slide, I've been told, is very jargon heavy, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Just kind of in summary, the base student allocation is the discretionary funds the board has available to pay salaries. The state tends to put a lot of money in categoricals, which are restricted. The base funds are really what we use to pay employees, and you can see when you adjust for this consumer price index, which is similar to inflation, we should be receiving $1,100 more per student, per student, to kind of keep up with the labor market and keep up with the costs. Because if you think back to 2007-8, what cost the same amount then that it does now? And the answer is basically nothing. So our costs have risen, our funding has not. If you look at the potential funding, if they did include that cost of living, we'd be receiving $34.6 million and probably having a very different discussion today. But unfortunately, our funding was $8.5 million over that period increase. We saw the additional retirement costs of $10 million, additional health insurance costs of $8.6 million. So we're really in a negative net position, if you will, available funding of $10.5 million for those employee-related costs. Similarly, we've seen this year, again, I'll keep using the word unprecedented decrease in our brick and mortar schools, which is our traditional delivery model. You can see almost 900 kids less than we anticipated and less than our budget was built on. We decided not to necessarily slash teacher positions and slash school-based positions, although that has been the past practice. When there are less students, that means less teachers. And our entire funding model is completely built on the number of students we have. So when we see these kind of reductions, it has a very significant impact. We're in a declining enrollment kind of scenario right now, which is very unusual for us. We've got kids absolutely fleeing the district. When you look at our homeschool enrollment, 3 years ago it was 1,200, now it's 2,100. 3 years ago, our family empowerment scholarships were 0. Now they're projected to go over 2,000 for next year. So when you look at the number of students that are leaving the district, it's staggering. And that's very important when the board makes decisions. And of course, the slide that we've discussed a few times is our budget reduction that was a direct result of the loss of students and the impact of the voucher programs that have our tax dollars going to private schools. And I know we just, in the previous offer, it was mentioned that this is not necessarily a union or employee problem. This is everyone's problem because we are under attack by some of these programs, and we're going to have to completely change our mindset on how we approach things if we're going to be competitive. We have to think kind of with a competitive edge because students and parents have choices, and if they want to take their tax dollars to a private school, they can do that. So it's most definitely, when you look at the gross dollar amount of over 11 million or around 11 million, that is not chump change. That is significant. It's also reoccurring because it's not like we're expecting those 900 students back in our brick and mortar schools. So there's budget issues next year that we have to address, but significant changes are going to have to be made just kind of based on how we operate.
Because of all of those reasons that Mr. Rella just reviewed with us, from some costs that are out of our control to the way that we're funded from the state that's not keeping pace, has really forced the board to start putting together combination of base salary and bonus funding in order to create an attractive salary offer. The last counter that we received brought up some conversation around the reserve balance, and we wanted to spend some time this evening talking about why we maintain the reserve balance in the way that we do and how we use it. So that reserve balance is in place, much like in your personal finances, an emergency fund, so that we can maintain operations in our districts in the event of an emergency, similar to the $11 million shortfall this year. The board is required by the state to maintain a 3% fund balance, and failure to do so can lead to the state coming in to take over the financial management of our district. Our board also has in place a policy that requires the superintendent to develop a plan for restoring our reserve balance if it's expected to dip below 5%, so that we aren't waiting until we hit that 3% threshold before planning and addressing the reserve balance takes place. So maintaining this reserve balance, a healthy reserve balance, is a paramount responsibility of the board in order to ensure that they're able to meet their financial obligations, primarily of paying our employees twice a month. In the proposal we received last time, it was suggested that the board draw that reserve balance down to 5%, that's required by board policy, as a way to increase employee salaries. Doing so brings that reserve down to an amount approximately equal to $12.8 million, which would not be enough to cover 2 payrolls for all of our employees. So the board is not willing to jeopardize their ability to maintain the employment for all of our current employees in the event of an emergency. Using one-time reserve funds to pay for increases to the salary schedule this year could create long-term problems, since those reserve funds, once they're spent, are not available going forward. So the board continues to prioritize employee compensation in the face of the shortfall this year, and in the face of the declining enrollment that we've discussed in the expansion of the voucher and scholarship programs. So this year, the joint salary offer is combining, as it has in our previous 2 offers, both recurring and one-time or bonus costs, balancing the use of general funds and federal funds to make this historically large salary offer. When we talk about recurring expenses, we're talking about those ongoing costs that are needed to maintain operations and the employment of our over 3,800 employees. And roughly 80% of our budget is spent on those recurring costs of employee salaries and benefits. Unlike most other districts, our board provides the recurring expense of an annual automatic step increase for all of our employees. And the board has to ensure that any money added to the salary schedule on top of that automatic step increase is an expense that the budget can sustain moving forward. So again, spending reserve balance one time to fund a permanent raise isn't possible.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. And kind of jumping in to the offer, as mentioned by Ms. Wise, the board is not in a place to increase the reoccurring costs based on all the circumstance we're looking at. One thing we did talk about is the impact on the teacher salary increase allocation, which, as we know, really tied the district's hands and directed funds into our beginning teacher pay. And while I think the intent of the law was good, I think the implementation and the fact that they were very prescriptive with what they did made it really difficult. And the reality is it's been an honestly a travesty what's happened to our veteran teachers. So you'll notice that in this offer, that's the opinion of the board, is to pay those that have been left behind, and those are our veteran teachers. And if you look on the proposed counteroffer for the teacher salary increase allocation, we have increased the per cell amount on the salary schedule from $238 to $357 to be consistent with what we're paying our novice teachers. And that, I forgot to mention, that $357 is equivalent of 24 cents an hour, just for reference. For the support staff, the board is sticking with 20 cents an hour. Again, this is retroactive to the beginning of the assignment period, and the board is not willing to sink any more reoccurring costs with what we're facing right now. Moving on to the bonus portion, as we've mentioned, the veteran teachers have been left behind, and it's very unfortunate. The board wants to do the best that they can within the financial restraints to make that right. And they're proposing for all teachers, steps 10 through 42, so those are all the ones that did not receive those big increases with the teacher salary money, will receive a one-time bonus of $1,000. And a lot of what we've talked about, and we'll talk through the timelines. Obviously, if we're able to close tonight, which we certainly hope that we will, we should have time to get this on the paychecks on the March 15th, which is the first payroll, or the last payroll before we go to spring break. It's a really big priority for the board. I know our employees are hurting financially. The inflation's happening now, the needs are now, and they want to address it now. So if we're able to come to a conclusion tonight, for all veteran teachers, they'll receive a $1,000 bonus. Similarly, for all instructional personnel who are employed at the end of the first semester, will also receive a $1,000 bonus on the March 15th paycheck. Support staff, and I should have mentioned before, and I kind of put it on the offer, but the board did agree to increase the bonus amounts to align with what the ACA has offered. So we came up there, and we're treating both those groups the same way. So we went up from $750 to $1,000, and from $500 to $1,000 for our support staff. So all with this offer, all educational support personnel who are employed at the end of the first semester will receive a bonus of $1,000 on their March 15th paycheck. I think this language has been relatively agreed to at this point, but we value our staff and want to build capacity within our staff. And there's a couple trainings that are particularly important to the district, and we want to provide those trainings and offer a $1,000 bonus for completion. We did add some additional language, kind of like thinking through the timelines and the logistics of training, upwards of 2,500 employees, and particularly the youth mental health first aid was going to be a heavy lift. And I think we probably could have let it go and renegotiated. We felt it's best to be clear on the front end if that's our intent. And we're going to have two different windows. We'll have a window, the first window will be those that complete the assigned training before June 15th will be paid at the end of June, and those that complete it before the end of July will be paid on August 15th. So one other piece we wanted to do, and this stuff, there's a lot of different, particularly this year with the bonuses, the suggested raise, the disaster relief. We wanted to provide both bargaining groups and employees listening with some perspective on what it means on an annual basis and what the board's offering. So we do have several examples of that. And the first one's a highly effective classroom teacher on bachelor's step 15. Obviously, as we talked about before, everyone received their step that earned it at the beginning of the year. The disaster relief payment was provided in this instance, since it's a classroom teacher, by the state of Florida. The board did match the other, for those employees that were not included. The salary increase for the salary schedule, $357, performance pay, the COVID relief bonus of $1,000, the veteran teacher bonus of $1,000, and the training bonus of $1,000. So for this example, teacher on step 15 would receive a total of $5,100, which if you look at it on a percentage of the base pay is an 11% increase. For bus drivers, similarly received the step. They received the disaster relief payment provided by the board. We did reclassify this group of employees, as we've talked about a lot during bargaining, to pay grade 25, so a $2,200 increase there, the hourly rate increase, the relief bonus, training bonus, so a total of $5,700, which is a whopping 24% increase for that group, and we appreciate them very much if anyone's listening. For custodians, again, step 15, pay grade 22, received their step, received their disaster relief payment in August of this year, or this fiscal year, I should say. Would receive the 20 cents, the COVID release bonus of $1,000, the training bonus of $1,000. So a $3,900 total increase, which is 14% of their base pay. For our roofers, glaziers, and masons, again on step 25, received their step on July 1st, received the disaster relief payment from the board of $1,000. Were reclassified through the compensation committee to pay grade 26 for a $3,300 increase, and would receive the 20 cents retroactive to the beginning of the year, the COVID relief bonus, and the training bonus for a total of $7,100 for the year, which is 19% of their base pay. For our novice teachers, as we know, we've been forced to compress our beginning pay for step 0 through 9 based on the teacher salary increase money. So this individual would not have received a step. They would have received the disaster relief payment, again, provided by the Department of Ed in this instance. The salary schedule increase of $357, the performance pay add-on, and the COVID relief bonus paid March 15th of $1,000, and the training bonus of $1,000. So a total of $3,400 for this employee, which is 8% of their base pay. And last but not least, instructional paraprofessional, step 15, would have received their step at the beginning of the year, the disaster relief payment provided by the board of $1,000, the 20 cents per hour, the COVID relief bonus of $1,000, the training bonus of $1,000. So a total compensation package of $3,400, which is a 20% increase based on their base pay. In terms of the overall proposal, as we discussed before, unprecedented $9.5 million. We didn't find anything, honestly, that was anywhere close. If you look at the base salary increase is for the bargaining group is $820,000. We have agreed to and partially paid the instructional and para bonus at Lake Forest, Ottawa, and Williams. We reclassified the bus drivers. We agreed to the new nurse uniforms. We're proposing a veteran teacher bonus of $1,000, and then for our COVID relief and our training, you can see those costs there. So total package, $9.5 million, and of that, $1.5 million would be coming out of general funds, and we would be looking to federal funds for the other $8 million. When you look at this at even a higher level, if you remember back in November, the board proposed an offer of $5.1 million, which was big, and then you can see the subsequent offer was over $2 million more than that, and the subsequent offer even more, $2 million. So the increase from offer 1 to offer 3, which is today, is $4.3 million. Which is actually, that one increase is bigger than anything we've negotiated over the last 5 years, and the package itself is the largest ever passed across the table. We did want to discuss the timelines. As I mentioned before, it's the priority of the board, and I'm sure the ACEA, to put money in our employees' pockets. And, we're at kind of a very pivotal moment right now. And this timeline, obviously assumes we agree today, which we hope to raises. We've already discussed with the board chair that we would like to, if we agree tonight, we would like to get an emergency agenda item on the March 1st board meeting, and he has agreed to do that. Again, to kind of maintain our timelines. In terms of ratification, of course, that's out of my hands and your court completely, but we would need ratification by March 9th. And then on the March 15th payroll, which again is the last one before we go to spring break, we would be providing the $1,000 COVID relief bonus to all employees. We would be providing a $1,000 veteran teacher bonus to all eligible teachers, incorporating the salary schedule increases to all eligible teachers and ESPs. And then you can see after that, we're looking at the first round of the training bonus on June 30th and the second round on August 15th. And that, I did have language, which I'm not going to bore you guys with, but we do have 2 copies ready to sign. At this point, I'll open it up for any questions that you may have on the offer.
Okay, yes. We just got a message that the internet or the meeting is not being broadcast. Is that what you wanted to
Yes.
put there?
It was from 2 minutes ago that the YouTube portion is not working anymore, so we just wanted to alert you.
So I'm Carmen Ward. I'm the chief negotiator for the instructional and the ESP joint salary. And I don't have any questions about your proposal. I wanted to clarify, not everyone got a step because we had 0 through 8 on the instructional pay scale was compressed. So all of those folks did not receive an additional step. Neither did any other compressed steps on the ESP schedule. So so I just wanted, and those at the top, of course.
That's honestly, thank you
Yeah.
for pointing that out. I probably didn't do a great job, but that's actually one of the reasons that I included that as an example, because not every employee gets a step.
Correct.
There are some on pay grade 22, steps 0 through 5, I think, and then on the bachelor steps on the lower level, they do not, and that's why I included an example.
We also didn't, there's not a graphic for the 20% bucket. Oh, the 80% bucket.
And it's not costed out in the budgetary impact.
So if you look on page 15, we have the exhibit that shows the 20% bucket.
But the 80%?
The 80% bucket,
So the 80% bucket, as we've talked about,
CSA.
really is a computed rate, if you will. So it's obviously assumed that the 80% bucket is what we passed previously, which is step 0 through 9 being increased 357, because that's really a mathematical calculation, and the board's not putting any additional compensation, so it seemed unimportant to include that.
So the board doesn't have to pay the first steps, anything, it's completely
TSA.
TSSA money?
For the employees in the 80% bucket, that is true. For the employees that are in the 20% bucket, because you have to keep in mind, we have, part-time teachers, we have teacher supports like speech language therapists, guidance counselors that aren't eligible for the 80% bucket, but they are on the salary schedule, so we do incorporate the costs, which you can see in the 20% bucket.
Does anyone else on the ACEA team have a question of confusion about the proposal? Okay, we do need to caucus. I need to caucus with my team.
So absolutely, we can do that. Our team can leave you the room, and we can pause the meeting, mute, and do all that. I have two very quick language things. Do you want me to give those to you so that you could, to discuss those during your caucus as well?
Yeah, I have also the TA for you from the current contract language.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, well, that would be wonderful. And what I have for you, if I could ask someone, why did I walk up here with I have a counter for you. Let me share this with you. Well, for Article 10, Section 5, this was, you have passed some changes to this section, and based on the information that we shared about the board, putting recurring costs in, especially an unknown cost, they really focused on putting all of the dollars into the joint salary proposal. So we're going to be returning CCL on Article 10, Section 5. And the only other thing I have for you, and I'll leave you a copy, is the MOU. When you and your calendar team and I worked together, we put asterisk 2 days to be negotiated for professional development days for teachers. And so those dates were determined to be Tuesday, August the 2nd, and Monday, January the 2nd. And I have an MOU that says, were you to agree to those 2 days, the instructional employees would participate in 6 hours of professional development on those days at their hourly rate. And so I have that for you as well, for your consideration while you caucus.
Ms. Wise, Dr. Tessman has kind of requested that if we have ESP language, that we share that now prior to the caucus. I know that's not what we normally do, but I'm happy to do that at her request as long as everyone's in agreement. All right. I'm going to stop sharing here real fast and bring this up, hopefully. I think this should be sharing. Good afternoon, good evening now. I'm David Shelnut, the Chief Negotiator for the ESP team. As always, I want to thank Dr. Tessman and her team. Appreciate your participation, as well as the instructional team, and I want to thank the board teams as well. Ms. Boston's coming in right now, and she's going to start passing down a few items. Just real quickly to share, Dr. Tessman, the board team had passed a kind of sick or a leave abuse item that the AC team had CCL'd, and we're passing that back as CCL at this time. So that's not something that you'll be getting passed out, but I did at least want to make public notice of that. Also, the board team had passed language trying to shorten the amount of time in order to make a hire to try to fill those positions faster. As I recall, you mentioned the willingness to maybe MOU bargain that, but not necessarily add that to the collective bargaining agreement. I want to make sure I'm accurately reflecting your statement. and you had CCL'd that, and we're at least passing that back at this time as well. There are two items that we are going to TA with you as well. The first here is Article 11, Section 7, dealing with facilities. We had already agreed to one component of that, but this is language that you passed at our last meeting a week ago about employee input will be considered when determining if a helper or other employee is needed to work with them, and we're agreeing to that language. Again, and then we already agreed to, if an employee is new to a work site, that a walkthrough will be provided to that person upon their request. So that's something that we're willing to TA tonight. I don't know if I'm going too quickly. I don't want to rush over anything, but okay, please interrupt me if you do have a question. The other information that we're going to TA tonight is bus drivers, and we passed back a lot of language, both of us, throughout the time. We had a discussion at our last meeting that you had requested 5 days' notice about copy, and this is both for drivers and bus attendants. And if you remember, we had added routes are subject to change, then the ACA team added a per applied processes, and that's my words, not necessarily exactly the way you said it. And we spoke at the last meeting in February that we have to do the applied processes, and then you mentioned that that was understood, and you mentioned the concern about having routes are subject to change, although you also said verbally that that was understood. And so as long as we're all agreeing that routes are subject to change, and if they do, they should be following the observed processes, we're content with TAing that information as well, and that's the case for both. All of the other information with the bus drivers and bus attendants, and again, I don't want anyone to feel like I'm rushing through this, we've already agreed to previously or had agreed to CCL, including training dates, and including we have said at the last meeting about the new drivers being eligible for the short field trip, which we already agreed to, as well as the information at the very last thing, which would deal with that when the handbook is done, and again, I don't want to make everyone think I'm rushing, but the same information for the bus attendants is the same as the bus drivers, as well as those training hours being added. And then the very, very last thing at the bottom here, again, we're TAing all of this. We agreed to has the option to submit the bus on letter O, and we also agreed that the district will seek input from the association when creating the transportation handbook and safe driver plan. So really the only thing new was the very first thing where we've kind of verbally agreed to take out the following the guidelines, and also routes are subject to change. That's a lot, and that's probably the busiest one, so I'll stop just to make sure there's no questions that you or any of the members have. Okay, moving right along. The information for maternity child rearing, which is new language that ACA passed, again at the direction of the board. At this time, we're going to CCL that. And so that's something that should have been passed out to you right now. In addition to that, we have kind of the custodial information, which was information that ACA passed at our last meeting based on a lot of discussion with D. We agreed with D, we're moving out that information, but with E, which was the most recent one, the board team is still passing CCL at this time. So that is something that is new, but we've agreed to the other information. And then the very last thing is dealing with paraprofessionals. Again, at direction from the board, we're CCLing letter C. But we did agree at the very end to both O and P, which are the information that deals with paraprofessionals upon request can review an IEP of a student they work with, as well as paraprofessionals are paid, professional development may be offered. So we did agree to O and P, but the other one was a CCL. So I'm sorry to throw that on everybody. That's a lot of information, but we wanted to kind of move through.
Thank you, and apologies to Ms. Boston if that rushed you at all to get those ready. That it's complicated to caucus, so appreciate your flexibility. I just want to make sure you don't have anything left that you have in your possession, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so I have 4 documents in paper, and that's the number I should have in paper. Everything else is a TA.
The items that we had, was the sick and personal leave and the transfer vacancy, which again was a CCL, that we're just accepting the CCL. TAing the facilities, and we're TAing bus drivers, And then we were just responding with CCL to the child rearing or leave. And then we did provide CCL to both the custodial and the paraprofessionals. So those are the items.
You mean a counter?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
A counter?
Yeah, counter, I
Oh,
apologize.
that's fine. I
Yes.
had an
I
instructional
apologize, you were
paper, so I
correct.
can't
So the
count
last
them.
two, custodian and paras, are counters, although
Okay.
some of those items, we did agree to your language.
Right.
Correct, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Ward, would your team like to caucus here? And with Mr. Shelnutt's permission, our team will go to the sub-training room. And then I'm going to, on the Zoom, I'm going to stop recording, and I'm going to mute and turn the camera off for you in here.
I just want to make sure that nothing in this room is going to be live streamed during that time, or is that still the case that that would happen?
Stop the stream without starting a brand new stream.
So the audio will,
And just put the picture up that was on the TV screens at the
Okay.
beginning of the meeting.
Yeah, we can put the time slide back up.
okay, thank you.
Ready? Okay, thank you, everyone. We are, sorry, everybody, your mics default to on. So we are returning to joint salary on February the 23rd, slightly later than the first time, and I am going to resume recording when we are, and I hand it over to Ms. Ward and Dr. Tessman.
So we would like to round out the instructional and the ESP language before we return the joint salary. And I do have a TA for you here for the memorandum of understanding for this 22-23 school year, that we're going to have 2 professional development days for instructional that is paid, that will be paid their hourly rate, their normal hourly rate for 6 hours. And those dates are August 2nd and January 2nd, so, of 2023. So I only had one, you're bringing me the other copy. Okay. So I do have that signed for you. It's a pleasure working with you.
Yes, thank you so much.
You can have that one. Okay, and that's all for our, I mean, so the TA on the CCL is part of the whole package of CCLs. Okay.
ESPs are also going to CCL, TA the CCL of the parental leave. We're also going to TA the paraprofessional language that was passed back, in the hopes that in the future we can find a way to get our paras paid during pre-planning at some point, so they can get to know their classrooms and their teachers. And we are passing back a counter for custodian language. Definitely let me know if I need to go up and show it on the document. But instead of the CCL that was passed back for E, of when a custodian is absent, the worksite supervisor may request a substitute custodian. We just would like to change may to shall, and that's the only change we want to make.
I don't know whether my team would like to speak, or for us, or Mr. Rella, did you want to? I'm sorry? Is that okay if we maybe listen to if we need to caucus, that way we're only caucusing one time,
Oh, yes.
as you did?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to acknowledge that we have a very large offer, I'm very loud. We have a very large offer on the table. And we do appreciate that that's the largest offer that historically has ever been on the table for employees. And employees are the lifeblood of this public school system, for sure. We also appreciate that veteran teachers have been heard, that it was glaringly unfair to pay a larger increase to the novice educators on steps 0 to 8, and meeting that with $3.57 amounts to 24 cents an hour additionally on their hourly rate, which brings us to the ESP offer that is on the table being 20 cents an hour. And we would like to propose that in the spirit of fairness, that 24 cents be considered across the board, because that's what the 357 equates to. So we would like to see that so that all our employees can feel like they are valued, and that would be a better offer taken. Do you want to talk about the other thing? Mm-hmm. Okay, I know, I just went right into what our counter proposal was. I was supposed to say lots of other things. I did want to just make a comment that my previous proposal did not say that we wanted the district to reduce their fund balance to 5%. I pointed out that that's what the current board policy says, that the superintendent must make a plan if it goes down that far. But our proposal was 5 million below what 5% would be. And so it was not accurate to say that we wanted, our proposal led us to being at a 5% fund balance. So I did want to mention that, because just for the record. And also, I do want to remind everyone that ESSER funds can reimburse all COVID medical costs back to March of 2020. So we have Mr. Rella pointed out, we have a large cost associated with COVID costs in our health insurance, which is all completely something that our COVID ESSER funds could reimburse us. So I just wanted to point that out, that we keep encouraging that to happen to fortify our self-insurance program that we have here.
I'd like to echo Ms. Ward in appreciating the large offer, and thank you, Mr. Ella, for communicating to us the empathy that you all are showing to the situation that all of our employees are in. I just wanted to mention that when we have the breakdown for ESP positions, and also with some of the veteran teacher things, we recognize that people do make more based on all of this, but wanted to just clarify that the step that was included is already budgeted for and contractually required, and the first disaster relief from 2021 has already been given to people. And then just wanted to, one more time, re-clarify, and it was mentioned, I appreciate you mentioning that the reclassification committee is how several of these pay grades changed. But just wanted to clarify that that was a superintendent decision, for people who are unaware of what the reclassification committee means. And then just wanted to, clarify for anybody watching that when it says a total increase as a percentage of base pay, yes, we will be, they will be receiving that, but it won't be happening year after year because of the not wanting the recurring costs. So it's not as if the person would receive a 19% raise or a 20% raise. And then I think I just have our last ask. Again, since we're a wall-to-wall unit and we are in solidarity together, we would like to ask that the board match the veteran teacher bonus with a loyalty ESP bonus for all ESPs from steps 10 to the top of the ESP scale at $1,000. And while I'm mentioning that, I do want to thank everybody for increasing the ESP bonuses to be equivalent to the teacher bonuses for the $2,000 portion, so.
And for both of them. Increased, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and then, and for more for the instructional, but yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Just want to make, sorry, God, that is loud. Just want to make sure we're like super crystal clear on the ask, because we usually would pass back and forth. I realized you guys probably didn't bring a computer and a printer, which is understanding. I missed that. So I just want to make sure that we're clear, our team's clear. So you're asking for the ESP salary schedule, each cell to be increased instead of 20 cents, which is what we offered, 24. And then you're asking for all ESPs on step 10 and above to receive a $1,000 check bonus.
In addition to the other bonuses. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Similar to how we're treating.
Yes, like a loyalty for veteran ESPs.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll hand you my shall, Mr. Shelnut.
Can I ask one quick question for language too, real fast? Initially, with one of the previous passages for the custodial language where you just said shall, it said previously when a custodian has a scheduled absence, but what you said in this case was based on the CCL, we would only be going from may to shall. Was that your intent? I just want to make sure I know very clearly what it is that you were wanting to pass, please, ma'am.
Yes, sir, that's my intent. Thank you for clarifying.
So nothing else changes, but may will become shall.
Yes, sir, and there's no necessary cost associated with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to pause the recording again. And going to have to stop the video and audio for our Zoom. Welcome back, everyone. I have to award the longevity prize to all of our Zoom participants tonight because I'm very grateful to everyone in the room who has stayed all evening, but I think it's been more challenging for our friends in Zoom land who've been being put on mute and no video off and on all night. But I'm grateful for everyone hanging in here and trying to get this. Sorry, I forgot to start recording again. I'm grateful, Carmen and Crystal, to your teams and to our teams for staying here tonight and trying to get this important work done. I know that we're all really committed to trying to wrap this up tonight so our employees, who we value very, very much, could see these bonuses and the raises in their paychecks before spring break. I did want to just very quickly, I appreciate you clarifying something for me. And I will tell you that the slides about the, that's not the one I want. The slides about the reserve funds, I put those slides in the presentation because I felt like I wanted to be able to help to explain the difference in our salary offer and the weighting that we've given to the bonuses versus the recurring cost, because in the offer that we got from you on the 3rd, there was some language around the 3.49% above the board's self-imposed limit that could be utilized for salaries, and then it went on to say there's 8.3 million approximately estimated in the fund balance that could be utilized for salaries. So that's why I added those slides to our proposal, and I thank you for clarifying that for us, that that was not what you meant. So I don't actually have our counter on screen to share with you, so if I may, as you shared yours orally, I'd like to share our salary counter is that we accept the 24 cents an hour adjustment to all of the ESP's salary schedule. And our counter on the bonus is for all employees to have that first semester bonus that would be paid, if we are able to settle this evening, that would be able to be paid before spring break, to $1,250. And I wanted really to further speak to the intention behind the veteran teacher bonus. I think those dollars that have come from the state that are well-intentioned to bring the starting salary up for teachers across the state have been good for those teachers, but have really, frankly, been a dagger in the heart to our veteran teachers. And if there was ever a time not to be daggering anyone's hearts, especially our veteran teachers, it's right now. And so that's why we want to preserve that bonus for our veteran teachers, but recognizing what you're saying about all of our employees, we would like to increase that first semester bonus that would be able to be paid on that March 15th paycheck to $1,250. And I do have that in writing here for you.
Oh, you do have it in writing,
Yes, ma'am,
okay.
I do. So, here is instructional is 2 pages, and ESP is 1 page. So that's the description in words.
You just need to read over it real quick.
Mr. Shelnut, do you also have language for me while,
Yes.
while she's,
Yes, ma'am. I didn't want to interrupt if there were any questions regarding the salary, but after a lot of discussion on our team's end, we're still moving towards CCL on the custodial language at this time.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Do you want to read this one out? So we definitely have a deal. So we are we're very excited. We definitely have a deal. We are going to be, I hope, announcing together that we have a historically large amount of money for our employees. I know that money doesn't solve all of our problems, but it definitely helps. And so we do want to acknowledge too, we have a lot of anxious employees out there that they want to complete all of the trainings to be eligible for their $1,000. So we did pass language previously about having it readily available by a certain deadline, and I wanted to just say this for the record, that those opportunities are coming, and the deadline has been extended to August 15th. I just want to say that because that was the most asked question, is how can I achieve that, complete that training so I can be eligible for that $1,000. So thank you for your oral presentation of it, and we are ready to sign. And this very long bargaining season is finally over 30 days prior.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank you and your team and my team and everyone who's stayed here tonight, and to Mrs. Roll, who will be helping Dr. Edwards with all of this training, because it's a really big deal to have a salary offer like this for our employees, and to think that the finance and payroll departments can be able to make this happen, and that you have to have such a quick turnaround time on your ratification. And we'll of course ask all of our schools and work sites to work very closely with both of you to ensure that that happens as quickly as possible. And we're happy that this will be able to be added to the board agenda for Tuesday night. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.